Hello, again, welcome back. Brian Jennings here. This channel exists to process my life, to discuss the nature of reality, to discuss the nature of my relationship with Quentin Tarantino and the movie Critic. I'm the actual reason that he canceled the film The Movie Critic, and he has created a case study in remote viewing in both of our minds. He's a powerful psychic clairvoyant. And so he cultivated this notion in my mind of me being his last movie star for The Movie Critic after he canceled the film as a result of some film reviews that I wrote in protest. The Movie Critic is a movie about a guy who reviews movies. And so after the third one, he canceled the film because I'm an actor who had been writing him letters. And I went through the whole story yesterday. And I'm promoting it, and it's like making the rounds right now, and I'm sure I'm going to get a bunch of comments about my sweater, and that's fine. It's a nice cricket sweater. Shakespeare, British sweater. But what I'll say is that I didn't say anything about the gunshots. I said this even in the video, so I'm going to forget something I know. And around the time that I started remote viewing Allison, the daughter, the girl who was alleged to be his daughter, is not actually his daughter. Right? They started putting gunshots through one of three things. Either my headshot, or a bust of my head, or a corpse that they have at their house. I don't know which. Doesn't matter. Could have been a tree, I suppose, but they create... Right, he has a couple of people that are like all in on the joke, right, and they all collapse their psychic pressures upon me, right, and then he pulls out a gun and goes, bang! And so the danger with that, right, and yes, I know what the argument is. I am aware, yes, that I've lost my mind, yes, like I get it. But the danger with that, right, if you understand, right, clairvoyance, occultism, right, esotericism, all these things, is that you are putting a palpable electrical pressure upon the structure of the victim's brain. And so that's what's occurring with me, right? And if it is to such an attenuated degree, right, this is what I'm talking about, it can and will inevitably cause a stroke or an aneurysm as a result of the electrical braid of pressure exerting the density of its condition upon the physical structure of the brain. Right? So, right? I still have, my ears still ring constantly. I was meditating all day today, remote viewing all day today. I'm not going to say who, but doesn't matter who. I can do that to anyone that I want. Anyone can. Just like Quentin. I thought maybe for this video I would start reading some of the story that I've been writing, which is perhaps me beginning to rewrite my novel. I've written a novel of my experiences with Quentin. And so in the first three drafts, it begins with a series of essays on magic, on number, on time. And they're good, and they're very learned and interesting to consider. And I like them, but I started writing again. And so now it's in the book, right, in the story, which I'll call this the new prologue, likely. It begins at the end of the last day of shooting at Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Magic comes in many forms. Today on Soundstage 18 on the Paramount backlot, Quentin Tarantino is finishing the final staged scenes for his newest film, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. I'll stop for a second and say that likely I'll change all the names, but I don't have to. Even if I change all the names, right? If it's to a level that someone wants to publish it, he's going to pay me to not publish it, right? Unless he sees it as his penance in some way. And he can always just say, oh, what an imagination, you know? Okay. Magic comes in many forms. Today on Soundstage 18 on the Paramount backlot, Quentin Tarantino is finishing the final staged scenes for his newest film, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Leonardo DiCaprio's Rick Dalton is walking across the street to discuss everything with Margot Robbie's Sharon Tate and Emile Hirsch's Jay. I don't know his last name. The camera pans up, a crane shot, filming wide as Quentin yells through a megaphone, "Good? You're holding? You're inviting him in, Sharon?" He darts a quick glance at his camera operator, who in a moment of telepathy offers a thumbs up in his direction without ever averting his gaze from the eyepiece. Quentin smiles. "Cut! That's a wrap!" The crew all applaud loudly, with the cacophony of murmurs and adulation, excepting the cast, who offer arrogant, insincere golf claps, being all too aware of their excellence. Sony executive Tom Rothman approaches Quentin. They shake hands and Tom pats him on the back, saying, "You did it. We did it." So much time together. They have become close, spending so much time together these months, so as to forge a likely lasting relationship. Longtime producing partner, one-time sexually submissive partner, gorgeous feet, Stacey Sher embraces Quentin with what can only be described as biblical familiarity, offering similar pompous praises as his beautiful new bride, Daniela Pick, Israeli royalty, famous through her father's infamous blasphemous pop song that includes forbidden holy passages as lyrics, now essentially a nursery rhyme. Immaculate feet, squirms and cringes, recognizing her husband's fond remembrances of debasing Stacey as much as he wanted, until she grew tired of his objectification. But it is superficial. They have a hip, sophisticated, open marriage, and often see sex as a mechanical urge that can be satiated with anyone, anytime. And while Quentin embraces his former lover, Daniela sends telepathic signals of sexual lust across stage to Leo DiCaprio, who darts his gaze upon her beautiful face at the speed of light. A recognition of understanding through his apprehension reigns. Often on set, certainly the entire time she shared the stage with him, she would blast the psychic landscape of his mind with sexual lust, physically exciting him 2 different times, which always brought the 2 of them to tears at his humiliation both times, knowing he has no clue and is only ashamed of himself. She did the same thing to the rabbi that married them earlier that year, and they laughed even harder, railing coke off of each other's genitals that night. Max Jennings, cinematographer Robert Richardson's assistant, lowers the crane to bring Ralph back terrestrial. Ralph's long white hair betrays a bulky frame and wide shoulders. Once lowered completely, Ralph releases the safety belt on the seat and hops off with the virility of someone 15 years younger than him. He takes nominal amounts of testosterone to rage against his decomposing body, the dying of the light. He approaches Quentin, and they embrace. Having worked together so long, they operate largely telepathically, but a moment of rare conversation unfolds in appreciation of the reverie. So 2 weeks? Quentin nods as they smile and release their embrace. We take a break. Sleep? A nod. Robert smiles, pats him once more on the shoulders as he turns back to Max, who is taking the camera off of the mount with a socket wrench. At the same time, Sarah rolls over a large case lined with cut-to-fit foam for the body lenses and magazines. Max puts the bolts in the bag as Robert jolts him out of his task by patting him lovingly on the back, making Robert laugh. A predictable response, which began some 2 years prior when Max started working with him, which is all but incapable of diminishing as a result of Max's character trait of having little to no periphery. A blunted, rusted sword, stubbornly hammering nails. But Ralph likes him. He never complains and knows his shit. You gotta relax, Max. You did a great job. A smile and a nod as Max secures the bolts in the bag. Thanks, Ralph. I appreciate being able to work with you. Sarah unlocks the magazine with only some 200 feet of the film exposed. Ralph looks between them. He would never admit it, but he considers them his vagabond, wayward stepchildren. You two should go out tonight. A fiery exchange of eyes between them, as Max replies an awkward moment later. How you mean? A sigh from Ralph. Doesn't have to mean anything, but I know you two like each other. Okay, Ralph, Sarah replies. We'll think about it. A smile now. Good. I trust you too. I'm gonna go. We're good, Max says. Enjoy your time off. You too. Do something fun. Loosen up. Another jolt from Max as Ralph pats him on the back, smiles, and waves at Sarah before turning and heading towards the front door to Soundstage 18. Sarah passes the lens and 18mm Zeiss Prime to Max as she gently picks up the Ariflex 35mm off its mount. Max blurts out, So you want to fuck? Sarah blurts out an awkward laugh. Anyone ever tell you you're autistic? Boss's orders. Gotta follow protocol. And yes, I know I'm artistic. I have a boyfriend, Max. Doesn't mean we can't be good employees. She rolls her eyes in aloof sexual acquiescence. My friend's band is playing at the Whiskey. If you wanted to hang out and celebrate with us, maybe, only maybe, would I like that. Max starts to roll the camera equipment, secured in the carry case, reminiscent to a roadie at a music gig. Across the vast expanse of concrete, with Sarah walking in tow beside him. Playing the Whiskey. You got a furry kitty? She punches him hard on the shoulder, staring wide-eyed. No, motherfucker, what am I, a crusty bitch? So smooth landing. I've been waxing myself since I was 14. Wow. 30 years of bald pussy. An even harder punch. Slip and slide since the Gettysburg Address. 87 years ago, a genius witch sought an extra frothy muff for the rest of us. Fuck you! But you're right. Maybe, just maybe, I'll come. You have my number, right? Daniela walks light as a Wiccan fairy, almost floating transcendental, past them both approaching Leo and Margot. As Max and Sarah continue towards the rear door they haul their gear in and out of. Max sees Daniela isolate him and walk back towards Quentin with him, watching it all pack up for the last time with Tom Rothman. I think so. And if I don't, that's okay too. You say you'll be somewhere. And if I see you, I see you. So what do you think about Leo and Daniela? What do you mean? You remember, maybe 3 weeks ago when Leo bolted out of here? She thinks a second. I think so. You think they've been fucking? Your neurodivergence is flaring again. Nah, it's logic, that's all. It's the type of shit these types are into. And what about you? Let me see your feet, then I'll answer. She laughs sincere, a high pitch with a snort that has always embarrassed her, and succeeds once more, forcing a blush out of her vulnerability. Max continues as they approach the loading ramp to the truck that hauls all the equipment back to the warehouse where everything lives across the lot. Oh, what? You think Quentin hasn't pruned Margot Robbie's feet with his saliva? And stamped his DNA all over and or inside of her as much as he wants? They, Max, secure the case behind the wide stop running from wall to wall, loosening the ratchet, securing the case, retightening, and heading back the way they came to do it all over again 6 more times. I, Sarah replies, want to say you're gross, but I'll admit I fantasized about taking my shoes off for Quentin. Max smiles wide-eyed at her. See, there you go. You're just as pretty as Margot. She blushes hard again. But maybe it's just my artistry. She punches him hard again. Fuck you, Max. An awkward silence of comfort and mutual consideration of their impending coitus ensues while across the stage, Leo and Daniela approach Quentin, who walks towards them away from Tom Rothman, who turns and heads towards the door. Quentin and Leo embrace. Leo senses something, but is grateful. So grateful he dismisses it as paranoia or a flight of fancy. So, Quentin says, what'd you think? Well, I reckon if Rick Dalton defines my entire career, there's worse things to be remembered for. As they talk, Daniela scrapes her manicured nails along Leo's spine, giving him a half chub. Quentin continues, "Thanks, man, you're great. You listen, you contribute. Everything He looks to Daniela, still jerking off Leo's spine. "Everything we could want. You know Daniela loves to cook." Leo's breathing is labored. No, not specifically, but..." Daniela cuts him off. "We want you to come to dinner at our house tonight." He looks awkwardly between both of them as Daniela's entire right hand continues molesting Leo's backside. "Dinner, you say? With the two of you?" An awkward pause. "At your house?" Another awkward pause. Another awkward pause. "How can I refuse? I know she's a great cook." Quentin smiles as Daniela seductively removes her hand from Leo's backside. Slow, methodical. She is professional as they come. "Great. We'll give you a taste of Tel Aviv. 8 o'clock, see you there." Confused and sexual glances abound. Leo replies, "Look forward to it." I'll stop there. It keeps going. Probably be 20,000 words. So we're setting the stage, right? Building a coven. Right? Quentin poisoned my mind for a year of his life with notions of multiple women being in love with me. Why? Because he's sick. That's why. Because I didn't give him what he wanted, right? Because I didn't complete the scene at Tribeca. That he set up this magic spell, right? Where he manipulated me like a puppet master. Right? All the way to fame, right? Like that's how he sees it. And that's right. I should have just done it. Right? But at the same time, I don't support evil, right? For all that I'm not interested in like the evils of Hollywood, for all that I'm like not interested in power abusing itself, that powerful people become, the notion that a powerful person is automatically evil. Right? That doesn't, like, I don't think that holds water in any way. Right? I find myself living it, being on the business end of it. As a result of holding on to the sovereignty of my mind, right? Of being a creative on my terms, not on Quentin's terms. Quentin's a powerful man, right? Quentin has a great violence in him, right? I thought that I always want to separate the art from the artist. I don't believe that Francis Bacon, when I see Francis Bacon in his London flat with 15 cats running everywhere, I don't see a violent man. But when you see those paintings, it's like, no, this man has a great darkness in him. Right? Same with David Lynch. Well, I'm sure they said the same thing about Edgar Allan Poe. But the reason that I'm talking about this now, the reason that I'm making all of these videos now, is because, right? He has spent all of this time, right, doing his damnedest to compel me to suicide. If we say that remote viewing someone, right? Even just the attempt, even if you're not successful in any way, as far as actually seeing them or connecting your psyche, your spirit to them. If we say that doing that strengthens the connection between the two people, right? Aware, unaware, that's irrelevant, right? The person that's doing the remote viewing, they're aware, like they know what they're doing, right? That if we say, oh, every time someone does that, they strengthen the bond between the two people that are existing in the condition, then having spent as much time as Quentin has remote viewing me, even if it's all him, and I don't believe that that's true. I think that he has a couple of people around him that are helping him in this endeavor. Because they all call him master, up to and including, right? Daniela Pick, the back molester. Right? Then it behooves me to discuss it because he's spent some 500 hours playing this game, right? Sealing our connection on a psychic level so absolute that he has created a palpable conditioned psychologically in both of our minds, right? And so if I want to live, and I do, I don't have to be Quentin Tarantino's last movie star, right? Then it behooves me to discuss it because, right, there's just at any point, he has all the cards, right? Like, and I told him the whole time that I can do everything that he does, right? But now he's actually aware of it. Now he like, right? And again, it wasn't me. It was like, the divine spiritual thing inside of me that compelled me to unfold all of my knowing, right? That I suffered under the rack with him for 6 months, not for a day, for half a year. He manipulated me all over the country, from the East Coast to the West Coast, back to the East Coast. And I wanted to know what the truth was, right? But at any moment, he could say, no, there's like having all the money, having all the resources. He could say, no, I have to murder this man. There's nothing left. I can't, like, he's not going to kill himself. I want him to kill himself. I can't trust him in the world because I know that he can do all the same things that I can do. I've perpetrated a palpable evil upon him to where I have engendered a mortal enemy through my behavior. That's my point. That's my point. And I don't want him to die any more than he wants me to die. No more, no less. That's what I said yesterday, and I meant it. Right? And I find my mind, it does, like, awful things. Awful things. No worse than him. But in that way, if he would just tell the truth about the movie, right, it would help me relax in a big way. Right? He doesn't have to pay me. This isn't about money. But if he's using my intellectual property, and I suspect that he is, because it's the most badass scene anyone ever sent him, this is all about my scene, or he is just outright evil. Right? His reputation is tarnished, right, in terms of the people who actually understand. And that's a lot of people. That's Tom Rothman. That's Stacey Scher. That's his agent, Mike Simpson. That's aemanuel, right? It's the numbers. It's not just him and Daniela, right? That's Brad Pitt, right? It's a lot of people, right? And so all these people that understand what's been occurring, right, every time that they look him in the eye, right, now they're forced to reckon, right, with the reality of my allegations. And though he lies to all of them, of course, he's never going to admit to this because he's not honest to anyone, least of all to himself, with himself. Right? But no matter what he says to them, they have to, right, every time they see him, they now are forced to consider, right, did Quentin dedicate so much of his time, so much of his life towards seeing this man suffer out of pride, towards seeing this man's mind degrade, towards seeing him commit suicide, towards helping him towards death. And if that's true, right, what else is Quentin prepared? Like, they have to consider all these things, right? Who is this man that I've devoted a lot of my life to, that I've devoted a lot of my energy to? Right, and so it's just, we're just ripping the Band-Aids off. Right? He thought that my ambition would supersede, my ambition of acting would supersede my love of writing. And I now am like more or less sure that he just manipulated me the whole way there. That even though it was my coworkers who said it, right? It was his design to see me go. It was never my design. I never wanted to go to that screening. I always thought that it was stalkerish, right? And so, right? He didn't see what was occurring properly, right? He spent all of that time remote viewing me without recognizing, right, that I was writing every day, every single day, as much as I could, every break at work, every night on my back porch all the way through sunset, constantly, as much as I could, right? And so he saw the letter, and he said, oh no, I still don't have to take that. Wanting something from me. right? Having remote viewed me constantly for 60 days. And now it's 380 days. It's well over a year now. 450 days. 10,000 days and the fire is logging out. A little flat, but so it's tough. It's tough. The idea of this persisting forever, right? The idea of me having to write everyone forever, right? And I have no choice. It's about survival. It's about me being in fear for my safety, right? No one goes to these lengths of lying, of conspiring towards seeing someone's psyche degrade, towards seeing someone blow their brains out, creating such a condition psychologically in his mind, in both of our minds. We're a case study in remote viewing. And expect that to persist for 20 years. Like that's my fear. And I can't live my life like under the umbrella of absolute fear. I know I can't do that. I can't assume that everyone that I see, right, is an assassin that he's sending to murder me. Like, of course, I can't, like, that's not well, right? That's what he wants. He wants me slobbering in the corner on a bunch of pills, right, telling everyone how evil he is, right, without, like in private, like in a hospital. That's what he wants. And so I'm not insane. I have nothing but love in my heart. I only ever wrote him letters out of the heart. Sincerely. That's all I ever did. I never wanted to play these fucked up mind games. I suppose there's a big part of him that thought that I was like interested in some way. And perhaps in the beginning I was. But in the 2 weeks leading into Tribeca, all I could think was, I'm ready to have my mind back. Right, no more. No more. And so now it's done. It's done. And I'm the only one who can handle it. Like I do see this, right? That this is a balancing of the scales. Right? That he's played his games all over Hollywood for his entire career. Right? And so someone came from outside of Hollywood and wrote a letter. And now I'm balancing everything for everyone else. And undoubtedly, right, that there must be at least one or two people who are close to him, even actors in his films, who admire me in some way for holding him accountable. Because, right, simple honesty is the way, right? Convoluted mind games, right, that's not the way. He could have replied to my letter, right? He could have looked me in the eye. All he had to do was look me in the eye, stare me down, boom, like I am the lens right now. I would have broke in 2 seconds. Right? I would have broken 2 seconds and said, hey, I got a question about this book. If it's a staring contest, no, I'm going to, right? I'll bark like a dog, right? But to stick your nose up, to not look at me, right? It tells me that you're, right, that it's an exercise in power. Right? So if I keep coming back to this in my mind, where it's like if I set something up, and I know I have no right to like make this comparison because I'm not him, right? But at the same time, he's not better than me. That's the point. I'm not better than him. He's not better than me. Right? That if the situation was reversed, right? Never, ever would I rest all of that on my ego, on my psychic prowess. Right? I would have put him on the spot immediately. Said, what'd you think of the book? Got any questions? That's, right? Then spiritually, everything's on the level. There's no manipulation there. Right? Because then he, which is me, would have had to answer. Unless he does outright disrespect you. And since I didn't, then, right? I loved him and I wanted him to love me and I wanted to play the part. I would have said, yes, I do have some, as a matter of fact. So when we rest all of our hopes on abstract intellectual understandings, right? When we rest all of our expectations on aloof psychic prowesses that God alone understands completely, you set yourself up for disappointment. This is the point. All of life emerges out of a psychic intellectual pressure. And the condition of the clairvoyant, communicating telepathically, remote viewing, right? The nun healing the sick, right? It's the same tactic that God, the abstract intellectual creator of life, utilizes to manifest matter out of space. It's the same tactics. And I don't want to go on and on about it. I've said it 1,000 times. Right? And so this is my point as far as what he could be doing. Right? That him and the people that are all around him, and he calls me a pretentious asshole, that I could be doing the same thing too, but I don't have a car. I don't have any money. Right? If I had a car, I'd probably be driving to Birmingham every weekend. I'd say, you take me to the nastiest people, riddled with tumors. Right? And I would say, are you open to trying something? I can't guarantee anything. But that's what they could be doing. Right? Instead, right, they all collectively meditate on seeing me suffer. And this is my point when I say that's the pinnacle of evil. And so if we understand that, if you say, oh wow, he really does appear to be being honest. Perhaps it is true. Why not? Why isn't he telling the truth? Then why shouldn't anyone assume that this man is prepared, right, to have me murdered at any moment he hits his breaking point psychologically, which is literally any day now, right? Essentially, he's there. Right? I'm assured, right? Of course, I'm assured, right? But I was also assured that, right, someone loved me. And so it's all a sick joke to them, right? The mind, telepathy, clairvoyance, right? Again, he turned his whole career into a game. That's the point. And I wasn't thinking that. I wasn't thinking at all. When he turned his back, I said, oh, okay. Right? I watched what he did and I followed that. Right? That's my right. So I failed my telepathy initiation to become an immediate movie star. I don't consider that to be a death sentence. And if he had even just wrote me a single page, right, and said, you blew it, fuck you, and not turned it into this disgusting, perverse siege, it is now a legendary psychic siege, I would still be working my job now. Perhaps I would have reviewed movies that whole time, but right, it wouldn't be what it is now, right? That this is a product of his design. Right? And so now, right, he really is torn, and this is another source of my fear because, as soon as I blow my brains out, he doesn't have any more problems, right? And that's why he sold that script on April Fool's Day, because he's still hoping I'll die under mysterious circumstances, as far as suicide, so that he could say, "Oh, gotcha," right? But I don't really know what else to say. Right? That all of this has been towards me, is killing myself. I feel like I lost my train of thought for a second, but all of this has been towards me killing myself, right? Which again is the pinnacle of evil. It's an abuse of wisdom, right? It's the abuse of celestial divine understanding for temporal ends to see your brother suffer. That's the definition of evil. Right? He checks all the boxes for the Antichrist. And again, I don't prescribe to that. Right? I don't prescribe to that. There's plenty of violence in lots of films. Right? There's plenty of violence in painting, plenty of violence in art, that there's a catharsis in seeing it expressed. Right? This is the origin of the tragedy in Greece. But right, it exists in a palpable way psychologically within him. Right? And so if he's done all of this, right, to not reconcile, right, to never, for us to never forge any real memories, right, why shouldn't I assume that he's prepared to murder me anytime he sees fit? That he'll hit his breaking point and say, no, this is the last thing that I can do, right? And so there's one other thing that he could do, right? That he could just descend it into a pure exercising black magic evil. That's the alternative, right? That this is where we're at. That we can come clean, right? That we can be honest with ourselves, with the world, right? Or he could privately pay me, right? Because I can't stop talking about it until he acknowledges me in a real way. I can't, right? Or, right, he has multiple people all dedicated to using their clairvoyance towards, right, putting me in such a state that I do end up getting diseases, that I do end up killing myself, that I do end up, right, in a dark alley where I get stabbed some dark night, right? All these things, right? Not necessarily as an overt conspiracy to murder me, but as a result of them putting me in a psychological state which diverts my attention or changes my trajectory to put me in the pathway of danger. That this is what's actually happening almost 99.5% of the time in witchcraft, magic, and sorcery. Right? But he knows that if I really sense that I'm going to do it all to him, right? That's like where I'm at. Not because I want to, but because I have to, right? And it's sick. It's a sick exercise in thought that has aged him measurably to play these disgusting mind games with me. Right? Or, boop, 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 get rid of him. That's where we're at. And so I have to talk about it. I can't not talk about it. Right? He's allowed to hate me. He's allowed to do everything that he can to make sure that I never publish anything or I never do anything in the arts. That's all perfectly reasonable. Right? But to conspire towards my sanity because I didn't give you what you want is the definition of evil. That's my point. And so it took me a long time, it took me months to actually see, right, the scope of his intent, the scope of his desire, and it's broken me, at least spiritually on some level. I wear it well, and it's been a great inspiration in terms of writing. And that's again, there's some perverse part of him that thinks oh, that's why he did it, and I have no cunning. That's the point. I'm a bull in a china shop. Right? Oh, you don't want to talk to me? You want to turn your back on me? I turn my back on you easy. No need to complicate things. I didn't turn it into a fucked up mind game. All I ever did was write letters from the heart. So you believe me, you don't believe me, but like, comment, subscribe, share. Right? Let me know what you think. Have a good weekend. God bless.